welcome back. We're here for episode two. I'm very excited. I am Kendra Losi, and I'm the host of this all-new Facebook show where we are bringing you the brightest, the boldest, and the most badass people, ideas, and technologies in cannabis marketing, in the cannabis industry, actually. Are you excited? I'm excited. Thank you for being here, and I'm really happy you're here. It's been an amazing week, and I'll tell you about it in a minute. But first, if you're here or watching the replay, welcome. Please jump in the comments and add likes, hearts, what have you. I'd also really love to hear what state you're coming in from, because as we all know, each state's regulations and even the country's regulations are very different. And so it's helpful to know where everyone's coming from so we can help tailor a few episodes for you and your state, hopefully, or country. And just a quick note, last week I mentioned that Canada voted legalization. Yay, go Canada. I did mention that the regulations may not be as strict as they are here. I was corrected. They are more strict. So thank you for the corrections and the feedback. Love it. Everything's changing a mile a minute. And so it's all we can all do to help keep up. And that's why we're here. The second thing is I got a lot of great feedback about the lower third. That's this thing down here. It's different this week. I changed it up a little bit, playing around with some design stuff because why not? Keep it fresh. Anyway, that was created using Canva and a couple tricks that I will share with you at another time. But that was created in canva.com. If you don't know Canva and you need to do any design work, it is amazing and a lifesaver and makes us all look as talented as we all wish we were. So today we are going to be talking about social media and cannabis, two of my favorite things, besides chocolate, coffee, and a few other things, but my puppy. But let's be realistic here. Who doesn't love social media? That's why we're all here. And who doesn't love cannabis? That's also why we're all here. So we're going to be talking about those things, and they both change almost on a minute by minute basis. So trying to keep up with all the changes in social media and marketing and trying to keep up with all the changes in cannabis is enough to make someone's head spin. But we're going to go over today a few of the main social media platforms and what they allow and what they don't allow. And keep in mind, I am not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be one. I'm not pretending to be one now. So if you have any specific questions, always be sure to go back and check the terms of service, the terms of use, all of those different components, the guidelines that each social media platform has, because they change all the time. And sometimes they don't change if you're YouTube and they just start shutting people down without telling anyone. Yay! We love it when that happens, right? No, we don't. So we're going to start with platforms. And if we have time, we're going to be talking about identifying your social media goals. And if we have time after that, we'll talk about the right platform for your business and your audience. Pulled straight out of the social media classes that I teach, the Slay Your Cannabis Social course, beta course that I taught for a lot of the cannabis entrepreneurs who went through the beta course. If that was you, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to go through it. I loved all your feedback, and I will be using that to make it better for everyone. Okay. So first of all, why has this week been so exciting? I hope that you have had as great of a week as I have, because one of the things that's been going on here in San Diego has been Startup Week. And so this is the second year there was a cannabis track for Startup Week. And so all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and yesterday morning, there were sessions specific to cannabis. Growing a brand, working on your advertising. On Fridays, there is one about taking your company public. It's just been awesome being able to see friends and meet new friends and network and talk about marketing and talk about cannabis and talk about social media and all the things. It's been fantastic. And then tomorrow, because this is the week of all networking, is social media day here in San Diego. And that is about 8+ hours of nonstop social media and learning from tons of experts. And I cannot wait for that, because that is another day of seeing friends and learning and getting to hang out and talk about marketing and social media. That way I don't need to make this session 10 hours long. I can go and do that with other people. And that way you only get a little bit. It's exciting. We all win. But anyway, I'm excited to go and check that out and then be able to bring back more of that information to you guys, so you are getting the most up-to-date information when it comes to social media, when it comes to cannabis marketing. Just to note, I'm starting to also schedule out the next few sessions. So we are going to be talking with Christian Valdez from Traffic Roots on the 13th, I believe it is. I will create the event and you will have that soon, as well as Lily will be here to talk about branding on the 19th. So very excited for both of them. You'll see it coming soon, and we'll start scheduling those out so you know who you're going to hear from and what information and exciting things we're going to bring to you. But today we are talking social media, right? And in talking social media, we are going to be covering specifically, as I mentioned, the platforms that you can use and that are more cannabis friendly. So there are a ton of platforms that are mainstream, and then there's a few, and that number is growing, of cannabis specific platforms. What platform you choose for your business is absolutely 100% specific to your business and your audience. So if your audience is B2C, you are likely going to have specific, different platforms than you would use perhaps than if your business was B2B. So, or business to business versus business to consumer, as well as what your goals are. And given that we're cannabis, another consideration we need to take into account is which platforms are friendly to cannabis. Now, when I do joke around a little bit that the show's going to stay on as long as Facebook will let us. And that's true because, as we all know, Facebook doesn't love cannabis. So you have to be really careful about what you're posting and what you're including. So what I thought we would do today is go over some of the rules and regulations, because who doesn't love rules, right? We all do. No, we don't. But anyway, they're guidelines. We have to follow them in order to be able to keep our messages up and be able to get our message out. So I have... I didn't want to go into teacher mode. I'm teaching next month and I'm not teaching this month. And so I was trying to avoid going into teacher mode. But given that this is very visual information, I think, in order to go through the terms of short service, I pulled the slides from my course that outline the specific rules and regulations and terms of service, like I said, terms of use, like I said, that each social media platform has. So I'm going to go ahead and share those slides and we can go through them together. It is fascinating stuff, I know, and I'm straight to professor mode with you. I'm sorry. So here we have, let me make this bigger. All right, so we are talking about social media, and not just social media. We're actually just waiting for my screen to get bigger. Yay. Okay, we are talking about each of the social media platforms. And in doing so, I wanted to highlight what those include and where you might be able to find a little more leeway depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So when you look at what Facebook has in their community standards, they're prohibiting any sale of marijuana, prescription drugs, firearms, ammunition. Apparently I can't say words today, etc. So it's something that you really need to pay attention to. Now, when it comes to the advocacy and education components of cannabis, that is where Facebook allows. So if you look at it more around education like we're doing now, or advocacy, which is incredibly important for this industry, that is what Facebook allows. But if you're looking to sell cannabis. That is not something that Facebook allows. What was interesting is one of the sessions, and I'm going to try and get him on here, was Ryan from Outco. And he was talking about how they use branded merchandise. And so they're able to sell branded merchandise on Facebook and drive people back to their website, which offers more than just the branded merchandise. So shirts, hats, etc. And I've worked with other clients who we put together, they were taking a more healthcare approach. And so we put together like a guide to alleviating pain and different things that you could do to alleviate pain. And one of those was CBD, for example, or strains of cannabis that included CBD and THC. So it's something that, and this isn't even specific to their advertising, this is just their blanket rule. So as long as you're approaching it from that perspective, you're going to get away with a lot more. Now, when it comes to social media and when it comes to Facebook, in regards to the ads, that's where I tell clients, or I make the recommendation that, really don't run ads unless you can do it in a way that fits with their guidelines. Because if you're boosting posts of someone smoking or doing things that are really focusing on selling cannabis, you're going to get caught. It's like raising your hand and making Facebook aware of you when you're already doing something you shouldn't be, which means that your whole thing could be shut down. So it's just being smart about it and strategic in how you approach Facebook. And Instagram's the same way. So they're looking at, once again, the federal law versus the local law or your state laws. And so they don't care if it's, and Instagram even says, they don't care if it's legal in your state, don't do it. So I've seen a ton of beautiful feeds from cannabis companies and brands. And I think that, once again, a lot of them say nothing is for sale on this page. So really focusing in and dialing that in so that you can, educate and be an advocate for and use the beautiful pictures and images that are suitable for your target audience. Doesn't have to be all high-end, top shelf kind of pictures if that's not your target audience, but making sure that you're aligning your images and everything you're doing for your target audience in a way that is legal that fits in with the Instagram guidelines. And we have all heard horror stories of people who've had 30,000, 50,000 followers and not, had their page shut down. So that's something that you really just want to be careful with and not have to worry about. Twitter is more lenient, and basically Twitter says it's on you. If you're doing illegal stuff, don't do it. Don't be offensive or inaccurate or harmful. Otherwise, you're responsible for the content you post. So if you're looking for, now Twitter has very specific purpose, and we will definitely be talking about each of these social media platforms over the next duration of these episodes. But at the same time, I think Twitter is really underused, and a lot of people undervalue what it can do for you. But once again, it goes back to your goals and who you're trying to reach. I have had tremendous success with Twitter in terms of using it for research and connections and really reaching out and connecting with people who are smart and have answers to things I don't have. And I love it. I love Twitter for that. So that's my commercial for Twitter. We'll keep going. LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn's community guidelines. Be professional. Don't steal information. Until then, don't share graphic images that are obscene images or pornography. And then knock yourself out. LinkedIn has nothing on here related to drugs, guns, prescriptions, etc. LinkedIn is definitely a more professional network and for what it's used. And I think that as LinkedIn's doing a lot of work since Microsoft purchased it, they've been doing a ton of work over there to really increase its importance for people. And this has been a really big year for LinkedIn. One of the things that I thought was really interesting at Social Media Marketing World in the end of February, early March, when I was there, a lot of people were really talking about how they were testing LinkedIn more and getting success with LinkedIn advertising and LinkedIn posts, and really using LinkedIn in a way that they hadn't before. And part of that was directly in response to the changes that Facebook has made to their algorithm and to the reach of being able to reach more people. So if you post something on LinkedIn, you can potentially get a greater reach than on Facebook. And on Facebook, you would require an ads to boost it, whereas on LinkedIn, you don't. So these are the rules for LinkedIn. Once again, all of the rules change, so be sure and check the specific website and social media platform in order to better understand them. YouTube. Here's what YouTube says is legal. And so we draw the line at content that intends to incite violence or encourage dangerous or illegal activities that have an inherent risk of serious physical harm or death. So that's what YouTube says they do, right? But we've all heard stories, I'm sure, of the YouTube pages being shut down with no explanation and no reasons. And those are all cannabis pages that have been shut down. So YouTube, and they haven't changed their policy that I've seen, but while their policy hasn't changed, the actions that they're using to put in place and to regulate it has. So YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, but use it cautiously because they certainly have come down hard on a lot of cannabis companies lately in the last few months. Pinterest. What does Pinterest say? Use regulated goods and products that cause harm to the owner or people around them when used incorrectly. So don't buy and sell drugs. Don't buy and sell cannabis. It falls into that drug category. Make sure that when you post something, you're not doing a bait and switch. So whatever you post on Pinterest, make sure it aligns with the landing page that you're sending people back to. And make sure you're following the laws. There is a lot. Pinterest, if you are doing B2C, Pinterest actually drives a ton of retail traffic. So if you're trying to sell something specifically to your store that is not cannabis directly, check Pinterest out, right? Like, it is a great platform for driving sales for things that do not fall into its community guidelines and policies. So keep an eye on the guidelines and policies, but try it. I highly recommend it if you're B2C. Snapchat makes it very easy. If you're targeting a younger audience, here's where you want to be or consider being, and don't use it for any illegal shenanigans. What are they describing as illegal shenanigans? It doesn't say. They're not specific. And because they're a little vague, it gives you a little more wiggle room there with what you're doing. One thing I wanted to touch on are the cannabis-specific social media social media platforms. And I know this is not all of them. I know there's more, but these are some of the ones that I've checked out in the past. Calagia is similar to a LinkedIn for cannabis professionals, which is probably the most useful for a lot of us, unless you are trying to sell to people who are deep in the cannabis culture, as well as people who are, cannabis like attracts like. So Doobie and Weed Life tend to be more specific to the culture. Cannabis Associates Network. Excuse me. Sorry. Too much talking. Cannabis Associates Network is also similar to Calagia. I really like Calagia's platform. I think it's clean and easy to use. I'm not just giving it a plug because Simone, the CEO of Calagia, is awesome. Hi, Simone. But it's a great platform to check out, especially if you are in a state where it's illegal and you don't want to put that on your LinkedIn. Some of these networks, as well as Weed Life and some of the, some of the others are, sorry, Weed Life's there, Weed Max and some of the others that are great to use to reach people. But once again, it goes back to what your goals are. Okay, I promised you I wasn't going to stick with the slides long, so that is the end of the slides. Boom. Now here we go. All right, you guys. So we are talking about social media, right? And those are those are the platforms, and I ran through this once again because it's a lot of detail. By the way, I'm going to put all of that information on the show notes. So if you check out motomarketing.com or just go to cannabismarketinglive.com, you'll be able to find the video as well as the show notes with some of that detail in it. So the information I just shared will be there if you have any questions. And as always, you can refer to the community guidelines or terms of use for each of those platforms. Okay, so what are we talking about next? Social media goals. If that was your answer, type it in because that was great and you'll get extra credit. I think I've got gold stars somewhere I can give you. Or at least a thumbs up and a smiley face. That works too. Okay, so social media goals. I mentioned all those platforms, and it's really important to take a look at them and see which one's going to work best for your business. But part of what's going to drive your platforms that you use for social media is your goals, right? So who's your target audience that you're trying to reach, and what are you trying to do with them? So let's talk about goals. I have taught probably, I would say about 200 students in the past year about social media, more if you count the advertising and marketing students I've had as well. And it's funny how people come in to approach social media, right? There's people I've had come in who want to talk about their goals are, I want 10,000 followers on Instagram, or I want 1 million subscribers on YouTube, or I want all the people in the world on Facebook to like my page. That's awesome, but what's it going to do for you? If you are a local company and not selling online, and your goal is 10,000 followers, and you make it to 10,000 followers, but they are all outside the state that you're in, you cannot do business with them. So it doesn't matter the number of followers that you have. What matters is how good they are. So one of the things when it comes to metrics that is starting to change when you look at how successful social media is how engaged are they? How many people are sharing or commenting or liking your post? How many people are talking about it and really engaging with you? What does that look like? And those are the numbers if you're trying to find an influencer, and we will talk about influencers at a later date. If you're trying to find an influencer, those are things you need to look at. It's not the total number of followers. It's a term called the minimum viable audience. The minimum viable audience. What is the smallest number of audience that you need in order to get them to start sharing what you are doing, in order to make a difference and actually start seeing results and increased engagement from those followers? So those are things that you really want to take into account, is what's the minimum number I need to shoot for in order to start seeing results. And then after that, you can grow from there. But I guarantee you that 10,000 is not the number. It's not a magic number in any way, shape, or form. And if that's your goal, great, more power to you. But especially if you're just starting out, take a look at what those numbers need to be from a total followers number, but really look at the engagement. I used to do marketing for one of the largest private nonprofit universities in California. And when we started out, we were going up against universities like University of Phoenix, right? And University of Phoenix at one point in time had a marketing budget of $1 billion. $1 billion. And we were trying to compete against them with that, with this little itty bitty marketing budget. It was this big compared to that. It was a rounding error. We would joke around that our budget was a rounding error. No one wants their budget to be a rounding error when comparing it to other people. But when we looked at their social media compared to ours, their Facebook page had a very small engagement considering they had over 100,000 followers. And we at the time were like at 6,000 or 7,000 followers on Facebook because we had just launched it and we're trying to catch up and do all that stuff. But our followers would comment all the time, would give us feedback, would ask questions. It was exactly what you would want out of social media. It was making your social media very social. And I'm not going the route of saying putting the social back in social media, but that's true. And that's where your engagement comes from, is really targeting your customers and your clients. And that is where you are going to find the most value. And that's what's going to drive your goals. That's what's going to drive your platform choices. That is what is going to drive what you put on there, how you approach them, what you do, what you say, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, when you look at your goals, you can look at your followers. It's an important metrics, but look at what they're posting. Look at what they're at, what questions they're asking. Look at what posts you post that they're commenting on. This is the information that's so important to you as a business owner, to understand what people care about, because you can give them more of that and then anticipate what else they're going to care about, because all of this is so important. Okay, so when you look at your goals, there's a couple things you want to look at in followers, engagement, likes. You want to look at your website traffic and your analytics and see how much traffic is actually, how many people are actually clicking through to your website, because those are the people you really want to target. And you also want to look at, if you're using Facebook and purchasing, that you can actually purchase through. You want to drive where you can to the numbers. So, and I mean by the numbers to the bottom line. So unless your goal is awareness, which is entirely possible, or keeping that loyalty, then you're going to have slightly different goals. But it goes in metrics to look at when it comes to social media. But it drives down from your business goals to your marketing goals to your social media goals. We are all about goals here and what that looks like. Okay, the last topic we are going to talk about today is, wait for it, drum roll. If only there was a drum roll. I'm afraid to bang on the table because it'll shake my camera. But we are looking at the criteria for selecting a platform. I talked about this a little bit, but you're starting with your goals and your objectives and your audience. It is really, really important to know where your audience is getting their information. What platforms are they on? Is your audience using Doobie? If so, great. Target there. You do not want to be on every single platform. You want to be on a few key platforms for your audience. I was listening to a podcast and Brian Peters at Buffer, which is a social media management tool. Shout out to Brian. Anyway, Brian was talking about how their company does social media management. And there was a point where they had to scale back the number of social media platforms they were on because it was too much. And even though they were a social media company, they themselves realized they needed to focus. Now, as a cannabis company, depending on where you are, you might have a person who only focuses on social media and they kill it every single day and they post all across the board everywhere. Awesome. Good for you. Keep it up. Keep a eye on what's effective and what's working and what people care about. If you don't have that and you're starting out and trying to build your brand and an entrepreneur and only have a small team, make sure you're being selective. Make sure you're looking at the platforms and the social media channels that your target customers are using. Take a look and see what your competition's using. Social media audit is a great way to see what that landscape looks like and understand where there are opportunities for you to play in and really take advantage of. We'll talk a lot about content creation, not today, but we'll talk a lot about content creation. It's really important in terms of making sure you're aligning the content you need to create with your target audience. And how do you do that in a way that makes sense and works for everybody? And another thing to consider is what kind of content are you good at creating? Or is your team good at creating? Are you good at videos? Are you terrible at videos and write all day? Are you great at podcasts or images and animation? What does that look like? Because some people and some companies are going to have just work better on certain platforms. If you have a very visual brand, surf companies, YouTube, Instagram, like all day long, they don't need to waste their time on Facebook. They can and do probably, but it's probably not their primary channel, right? It all depends on who you're talking to. Now, once again, the content creation you're good at, but the last two is what platforms are cannabis friendly. So you want to keep that in mind. No need to have a completely uphill battle if you don't need to. Don't try and slay all the cannabis. Don't try and slay the cannabis. You can actually. Don't try and slay all the platforms if you don't need to. Be aware of the time it takes for each one and your goals and your audience and which ones are going to be easier for you. Don't make your life more difficult than it needs to be. There's enough stuff in the world that does that for us. And the last thing I have is, what is your time and budget and resources do you have to manage your social media? Like I said, if it's just you and a couple other people running your company, social media needs to be a priority, but no one has time to be on all the platforms. So don't even try. Better to do 2 really, really well than 10 not very well at all. So focus. It's my mantra usually. So if you have any questions, feel free to add them into the comments. If you have any questions, like I said, all of this I'll put in the show notes so you have it if you want to refer back to it and see what I was talking about, or if you came in late. If you're here for the replay, feel free to throw your questions down below and I will respond to them as I see them come in. And I just want to thank you guys for being here. Love doing this. As I mentioned, every Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be here starting on the 13th, I think it is. Let me double check that date really fast. Starting on the 12th. On the 12th, we'll have Christian Valdez from Traffic Roots here. Next week, I will be talking about a little bit more about social media because I'm going to be learning so much tomorrow. I'm going to want to share it with you. So we'll do that next week. All right. Until then, this is Kendra at Cannabis Marketing Live. All puff, no fluff. Enjoy your week. I'll see you next Thursday. Thanks for being here. Bye.